Hello, everybody. We are going to take a quick look at the Unit 4 Lesson 3 portfolio. You can find this portfolio on the modification note that's in the lesson and also the Padlet. So we are going to walk you through finding this portfolio and working through this portfolio. So how do you log in? Okay, step 1, log into the class and go to this icon, the course outline, click on that, and the whole course drops down. So in step 2, you'll need to go to Unit 4, Uses of Data, go to Lesson 3, click on this, and there's a star. This indicates a modification note. As soon as you click on this box for your next step should pop up, and on your screen, you will see the modification note. Within this modification note, there's a lot of helpful information, but the activity link that you will click on is right here. And there's also a help video that you're watching right now, which is right here. Okay, so for the class code, my code is R80GPX. So that is the code for Mrs. Guicciardo's students. And Mrs. Hayes' students, super important that we get this, that you get this code right so that you are completing her portfolio. Okay, and you'll know when you log in, it'll give her name or my name, but her code is AMV83R. Okay, so when you log in, this is what you'll see. Okay, it'll say Mrs. Guicciardo's or Mrs. Hayes's, and it's our portfolio, and you will sign in using your email. Okay, so you click here or here, and once you log in, this is what you will see. Part 1, collect and enter the data. So here's the situation. Mr. Crane, he's a teacher, teaches a current events course and is known for making his final exam very thorough. He thinks that with the technology present today, his students should be able to stay current with all possible news. Mr. Crane's students kept track of the hours that they studied the week previous to the test. Here is the raw data they collected, aligning the number of hours they studied with the score they received on the test. So I took a screenshot. You will see 20 students. I only took a snippet of 7. Okay, and so for each student, you need to type in the chart, the hours they studied, and the score that they got on the test. So here is student 1, and make sure you type slowly so not to make an error. When you are done with this chart listing all student hours studied and all scores, you'll check your answer. If there's an error, you have to go back and look. Okay, so you'll just continue this process. Student 2 studied 7 hours and got a 60. Okay, student 3 studied 6 hours and earned a 60. So Mr. Crane truly believes that the more you study, the higher your grade will be. Okay, so this is part 1. All you're doing is entering the students, the 20 students' hours. Okay, this is the first column, the hours they studied, and the Y column represents the score they received on the test. Okay, and we're going to take this information and the computer is going to do some fancy things with it. So from your chart, we have 20 sets of points. 1 point for each student, 1 X and Y per student. The computer creates a scatter plot for you. So it's going to look like this. I'm just randomly placing points on here because it plots every single student. Okay. Pretend there's 20 points on here. Okay. What you need to do is look at your scatter plot, and you need to match it with one of these 4 scatter plots. Okay? And you just click it. Click the one that you think matches your scatter plot. Okay, and so on the scatter plot, here are some statistics, some information that you need for part 3. So the correlation coefficient is down here, and that is R equals, and it's going to give you a number. And that number tells you how strongly the data, the points in your scatter plot, correlate to each other, how strongly they relate to each other. Okay, how strongly are the hours studied with the grade earned? Do they correlate together? Do they go together? Do they make sense? Okay, so that is part 2, is just pick the picture, click on it, and you move on to part 3. Okay, here we go. We have a correlation plot, and in step 1, there's 2 things you have to do on this part. You have to drag the black dot, okay, it's right here. You have to drag this to the right or to the left. Well, how do you know where to drag it to? Well, it tells you right here. Note, go back 1 page to find the correlation coefficient. Dun, da, da, da. It's right here. R equals. So it's going to give you a number. You need to move this bar to the right to that number or to the left to that number. And remember, to the right is positive and to the left is negative. As you move this slider bar to the right or left, it changes colors. When you get to that number that was given to you right here, this R equals, that number, when you move the slider to that number, your bar changes, and you have to pick in number 2 which one the bar matches. Okay, so here are the positives. Okay, if your correlation coefficient in part 2 is positive, you're going to move it to one of these, or you're going to see one of these colors, green, orange, red. If there's no correlation, it's 0, it's black, and you don't move your bar at all. If that number is a negative number, okay, then it's going to be one of these choices. How do you know? It is right here. Okay, let me get my pointer. It is right here. It tells you R equals. That is part 1, 2, and 3. You now have a 6 out of 12. Okay, part 4, estimate your line of best fit. So you're going to have all these points located on this graph right here, okay, on your scatter plot, and you want to change this line. You're going to click the dots and make your line. You're going to move it. It's going to physically move to the line that you think is the line of best fit. Okay, that's part 1. Drag the 2 points, and as you do that, this equation is changing. The computer does it for you. You don't have to calculate and figure out the equation of the line. It's going to give it to you right here. Okay, so that's going to be your equation of your line of best fit that you think is right. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's just what you think. Now in part 2, it says, what is the slope of your line? Remember, the slope is always the m in your slope-intercept equation. So the slope is the m. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, if your equation is in slope-intercept form, it's going to be in this form, y equals mx plus b. Okay, so whatever number is in front of the x, if it's in this form, it's the m. It's the number attached to the x is your slope. Okay, so because this is just a screenshot, I can't physically move the red and the blue points to move this line. So there's no slope of this line. And where does it, oh yeah, the B in here represents the y-intercept. That's why it's called slope-intercept form. Okay, and it crosses the y-axis at 40. That's where this 40 came from. Okay, the slope in this example only is 0. So if you put 0, you have done it incorrectly because you have not moved your line at all. Okay, so move your line, find your slope. It's the number that's attached to the x. That's it. Part 4, you now have 8 points. Part 5 is awesome. All you do is compare the actual line of best fit to your estimate. And when you do that, the actual is going to be a solid line, and we'll do this just to be a little bit off a little bit. Your line of best fit is going to be dashed, and it's going to be a black dashed line, and the true one is going to be green solid. You need to look at those two lines and compare them. But the cool thing is that they give you the slope and the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis of the actual line and your line. So really all you have to do is compare those two and type some sentences. You could say, my line of best fit was very close because dun dun dun, our slopes were close, or something like that. So a couple sentences. Okay, you now have a 10 out of 12. Final step, part 6, is predict the future. So notice in part 1 we have 20. Back here in part 1 we have 20 numbers, 20 students, 20 points. Okay. Of these 20 students, nobody studied for 15 hours, I don't think, and nobody studied for 9 hours. So they want you to predict what somebody's score will be if they study for 15 hours and if they study for 9 hours. Okay, this is your equation that you will use. There's nothing there because they're just screenshots. I wasn't able to make my own line of best fit. And the actual line of best fit, they're not going to give you the answer just yet until you plot your points. The computer plots your points. So let's just pretend, and on this problem, there's no place to show your work, so you have to do it on your paper. Let's pretend that the equation that they give you is y equals 5x plus 10. Pretend that's this actual line of best fit. I don't know, it's not. I'm just throwing these numbers out there. I want to know what's the score if you study for 15 hours. That means you're taking the x out and you are putting in 15 and you're solving. So this is what you will do. And this is what you'll do on your paper. I can't see this work because all you're going to do is enter your answer. So 5 times 15 plus 10. Okay, 5 times 15 is 75. Plus 10 equals 85. So they are predicting if with this fake equation that I created, this is my equation, I threw those numbers out there, y equals 5x plus 10, okay, 15 hours that this student studied should get an 85, and you would put 85 in there. But again, this is your line of best fit, the equation you need to use. So you are done. Go to part 8 of the Desmos activity, and this is your document that you can download and put into the Dropbox to open the Dropbox. I hope this helped. Thank you.